and welcome to episode 301 of Sports on the Hill podcast. My name is Robbie, and I'm joined live today with Gil and many other guests to join shortly. Gil, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, Robbie. Thanks once again for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have a really fun show for people who have been following on with this podcast in the first 300 episodes. Sorry, I was admitting someone to a room. Let's see if this works for Anna. We're trying to get Anna Knox on as well. The other half of the Power Play Point podcast. Gil is the blue liner on point. Yeah, it's been an interesting 2 weeks for sure. We've got to talk about the trade deadline. We have to talk about some games. We have a game tonight, in fact, so we'll be previewing and then talking a little bit live during the first period at the end of the show. Lots of exciting XFL stuff to talk about. The Defenders have won 3 games in a row. In fact, all 3 games this season. They sit on top of the North Division. So that's very exciting. We'll have a special guest, Stewart Small, on to talk. He'll be joining Champ and myself for that one. And Stewart, welcome. And in fact, he is on now.
Hey, how's it going? Good evening, guys. How we doing?
We're good. Okay,
Stewart.
we're a couple of technical difficulties, but we're gonna hopefully get Anna on and shortly. Whenever she feels like she can feel free to try to join, and I will try my best to unmute, or feel free to send messages in the G chat. We're still trying to figure that side of it out. You know, it's always an interesting Monday here. You never know, technical glitches can come from anywhere. We're live streaming on Twitch right now. We're also live streaming on Facebook. We've got guests calling in from Zoom. Technical issues can happen from any of those possibilities, but we prevail and we move on, and we get to talk some Washington DC sports. Stuart, remind me, it was the last episode you're on, the Stanley Cup episode, or have you been on an episode since with us? Do you remember?
I think it was the Stanley Cup episode. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was the Stanley Cup episode.
Yeah, I think so as well. So it's been a little while, but I'm excited to have you back on. That was we were talking about it last week. Last week we celebrated 300 shows, and we were talking about some of. Thank you, and we're talking some of my favorite moments, and that has always been a top 5 episode for me, just to be able to celebrate it with you all, and something that I know you've been a fan for a very long time with the Capitals, as has Gil, and we finally made it to the promised land, and so it's been exciting, and I'm happy to have you back. We'll be talking a little bit of Capitals. We're also going to talk a little bit of XFL. You're a season ticket holder, is that right, of the XFL?
Yes, I am.
That's awesome.
Only football that I'm supporting at this point right now. So
that's awesome. I really like the product. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. We talked about it after week 1. Last week we did take a week off. I did an art show to celebrate some stuff. 500 followers on Twitch and the 300th episode, and I wanted to showcase that I do other things as well. And it was Pokemon Day last week, so people wanted to draw a Pokemon with me, and we did. It was a really fun show, one of our most viewed shows of the year, actually, so that was really fun. If anybody wants to watch the replay of it, it's on our Twitch channel, also on my YouTube channel as well. But tonight we'll focus more on sports. Again, the Capitals these last 2 weeks, including the trade deadline, very exciting time for Caps fans, a little nerve-wracking, a little upsetting for some, and we'll talk about all that, including all the games, as well as the Defenders. They're 3-0. They've been fantastic, and they've got a big week this upcoming week as well that we'll break down, and then we'll end the show with some Wizards talk. And they've been up and down, and they're sort of fighting for those play-in spots right now, and they're going back and forth with Toronto, and they lost what was actually a close game to the Milwaukee, which kind of surprised me, but in the end the score I don't think was indicative of the level of play that we saw from them. So we'll also preview their upcoming week as well at the end of the show. So very busy episode 301, but I'm super excited to get into it. So I'm going to break down the different games of the week. We're going to go through 2 weeks. I'm going to rush through the scoring of it a little faster than we usually do it, and then I'm going to let all of you guys, if Anna could join us again, pick a couple of your favorite games that you want to break down a little more in depth, and then I'll ask each one of you which game you want to talk a little bit more about. Maybe it's a Caps game you saw more of or you think is more interesting to discuss for whatever reason is apparent for you, and I'll let the other guests talk about those games as well. So that's kind of the structure of it, and all Anna hears is an echo. Anna, my thought right now is just dial out with all of these and just call in on your phone, and just if you can just plug in your phone and plug it in and just have it against your laptop and use it as a tripod to sort of angle it a little bit. That's what I've done in a pinch. So Anna, if you can still hear us, I would try that. So we'll still try to get Anna in here. Gil, while I share this Facebook to a couple of different groups to get their questions and thoughts on the Caps, I want you to let people know about you had a very exciting podcast this week. I got to hear the first 30 minutes of it on my way to work. And it's all about women's history, women in podcast. You had C4, a favorite of our show as well, on, and Anna to talk about lots of different issues, including the last couple of games. But tell everybody a little bit of a summary of the show and where they can find you. And I'll share it to a couple of different groups and we can start the conversation.
All right, so just as we did last month for Black History Month, we're focusing on Women's History Month this month. We're going to try and get as many female fans of the Washington Capitals on as we can. So if you're listening and you want to have your say about talking about the Capitals on the show, you have an open door. Well, you have an open door the other 364 days of the year, but this month the spotlight is on you, the female Caps fan. And so, like you said, Robbie, we had Anna on, of course, and C4, and we were talking about the games that we normally cover. It's a Sunday to Sunday week that we usually do, and so we went over the games. Thankfully, there were 2 wins. We went over in depth the rest of the deals that were made outside of the Hathaway-Orlov trade. And where this team's going to go for the short and the long term. So pretty good discussion about all that. Just posted it late last night. So I hope you go ahead and download. And if you're moved to do it, subscribe. We can get all the listeners we can get.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring you in since you were a part of the show. Oh, I don't think we can still hear you. No, you're displaying that we can. No, I can see you. Can anyone else hear Anna? Is it just me?
Tom Wilson is a hack. No, she cannot hear us.
Or no, here, let me try.
You can hear us?
Let me try something. Ryan Reeves is God.
Yeah, okay, she can hear us.
She can hear. She can hear Stewart.
All right. So Anna, here's another idea real quickly. Just on your phone, log on, but don't put your video on, and just use the audio from your phone. Just click on the link and then see if you can do that. Okay. All right. So Gil, we were done previewing your thing. I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off.
Yeah, no, we're good.
We're good. All right, I'm going to share this real quickly to a bunch of the different Caps groups. But Stewart, let people know a little bit about your background and your fandom and how long you've been a Caps fan for. If people weren't listening back at the Stanley Cup episode in 2018, just a little bit of a background about how you come to be a Capitals fan.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's always a pleasure to be on Robbie's show. As Rob said, I'm Stewart Small. I actually grew up with the Caps, grew up in Landover, right down the street from the old Capitals Center. Hockey was really the only sport that I could play for whatever reason. And so I just became involved with it, just started following the Caps from their bad times, from the time they almost relocated all the way to going to glory with their Stanley Cup championship back in 2018. And I was born and raised a Caps fan. I actually worked in sports journalism for a while. And of course, I got to know the team, got even closer to the team then. And now I'm out of journalism now. I should say sports broadcasting. Now I'm just a copy editor, but I still follow my sports, still love my sports, love my Caps, love my Wizards, even though they don't always love me. And I just try to embrace DC sports as much as possible.
Yes. Stewart's is what I would call a super fan. He's a fan of all the different DC sports. He goes to all the different games. I've seen pictures of him. And his bear has dressed up for the occasion and all the different ones as well, which I love. I love that. And you've mingled with more DC celebrities, as I'd call them, just different people, different walks of life, but all sorts of people throughout the DC sports fandom, or even like politics or ownership groups of some of these teams. So it's fun to get to pick your brain a little bit, because I feel like you've gotten to see DC sports from lots of different perspectives, including the Capitals and stuff like that. All right, let's get into it. And hopefully Anna can join us through the phone version. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do, Gil? I have a suggestion for Anna, so I'm gonna type this out to her. But while I do this, can you just break down some of the trades that happened at the trade deadline for the Capitals? I think that's an important thing as a function of these 2 weeks. Just who. You don't have to get through all the the nitty gritty details of the picks, but just who was shipped out and maybe who has come in that we've seen.
Absolutely. Going to try and get through this real quick. Of course, the first one was from about a week and a half ago. Both Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway traded to Boston for several draft picks, the key being their first round draft pick in 2023. More on that in a second. And also we got a player back, Craig Smith, who is already acclimating himself very well. More on that later. So that was the first bomb that was dropped. And then later on, there were even more deals. The other shoes were dropped. No particular order. Lars Eller, I think everybody knew that he was going to get packaged in some sort of deal. It turned out to be a 1-for-1 swap, him for a 2025 third round draft pick. Marcus Johansson was also dealt for a 2023 third rounder from the Minnesota Wild. And the big one was the deal with Toronto that sent both the 2023 first rounder that they got from Boston in the earlier trade and Eric Gustafsson to Toronto. And who they got back was a guy by the name of Rasmus Sandin. And Sandin is, well, I think they're earmarking him as the future of the Caps defensive core. And we're going to talk about it here, but his first game was pretty darn good. And if it was a preview of coming attractions, then I think we're in for a treat. But a bit of a note, friend of the show, Tom Gobble, pointed this out to me a couple days ago. Sandin was actually chosen 2 spots ahead of Alex Alexeyev. So now if you think about it, in that draft class, I think it was either the 2018 or the 2019 draft class, now they have 2 of the top young defensemen from that draft class, which wasn't all that long ago. So as far as the future of the defense, they're looking pretty good. And I have to say, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised with this retool on the fly and how it went.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back in time. And Anna, I see that you're logged on the phone. So if you want to get the camera button and the mic button to see if that works.
Hey, there she is.
Yeah.
I hear.
Yes.
Yes. Yay.
Anna.
Right. There you go.
Right.
I love it.
Little technical issues just to stir things up, right?
Yep, for sure. All right.
Anna, wonderful to see your smiling face. Let me tell you, it's been a minute.
It's a Pisces thing, right?
That's right.
It's true.
We just gotta stick together.
Yes. Happy early birthday to 2 of the people on this 4-person roundtable. So Stewart has his birthday on Wednesday, and Anna has her birthday on Friday. And I'm excited for both of you. So happy early birthday to that, and happy early birthday to my wife, whose birthday is actually next week, but she's letting me do the show still. So so big
So happy
props to her.
birthday
I will
to
give
you.
so I will give her major shout outs next week for that.
As well as flowers.
Yes, flowers, all the whole 9,
Yeah.
right? So all right. for time, we're going to go real quickly through all of them. Each one of you guys are going to pick 2 of the games you want to go more in depth after I've gone through all of them. It can be the same games. I'm going to ask everybody in the roundtable about them. So if we end up picking the same ones, it's not a big deal. But we will start with our sort of lightning round Caps talk now. So we got where we left off was we lost to Carolina twice. We had that E-Flat guy on. We talked about the unfortunate outdoor loss as well as the one earlier in the week. And that sort of set us up for a game against Detroit where in our minds, if you lose that game, then you're kind of in sell mode. And there's not much, we can do about it at that point because, these are the teams you kind of have to beat. We did end up losing that game 3-1. Tom Wilson got the only goal for the good guys in that one. And that was already after it was 2-0 in the first. And then he made it 2-1 on the power play goal in the first, nothing in the second. Then unfortunately they were able to get one in the third. And so that was kind of that game at home. And then you play the Anaheim Ducks, which is one of the worst teams in the league. And so you have to at least win one of these games. And you end up losing both of them. And this game was kind of a brutal loss. We got on the scoring sheet first. TJ Oshie gets his 12th goal of the season on a power play. So things are looking good. Unfortunately, early in the second, they get a goal back. Nick Jensen is able to give us the lead again, but it's for a very short period of time, less than a minute. And unfortunately, they come back and tie it up. And then they get 2 goals in the third period. One is an empty netter. So it's a little bit closer than it looks, but not much. And it's just unfortunate because they had the lead twice in this game and it escaped them. So not a great way to, kind of go into this game against the Rangers. And the Rangers have been a really good team this season. But here's the shocking win of that week. TJ Oshie once again scores first on the power play, his 13th of the season. And then, unfortunately, a couple minutes later, the Rangers tie it up 1-1. In the second period, TJ Oshie scores again, his 14th of the season. Gustafsson was a assist man on both of those. He's up to 30 now on that. Made it 2-1. Tom Wilson gets a goal, his 5th of the season, assist by Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Ovi's 23rd assist of the season. Made it 3-1. Sonny Milano scores his 9th, made it 4-1. Kuzi scored his 10th, made it 5-1, and the route was on. Chris Kreider makes it a little closer, 5-2 in the third. Kuzi waves the bird, an 11th goal of the season. Ovi's 24th assist, Tom Wilson's 2nd assist, makes it 6-2. They get one final goal back at the very end of the game in the final minute, but by that point it is 6-3, and it is the best win that we saw, in a while. Because up until that point, it was a 6-game losing streak, right? So then we go to Buffalo, and this is kind of the make it or break it. It's kind of the prove it moment saying, hey, was that Rangers game a fluke? Or not. And it kind of seemed like a fluke. Buffalo they scored early, 10 minutes into the game. Dylan Strome tied it up. They scored again. TJ Oshie tied it up, but then in the second period, after the Caps were interviewed saying that they could keep up with goal scoring with Buffalo, they weren't too worried about that, which is probably not the right thing to say, because then the next 4 goals are scored by Buffalo. Then Ovi does get one back, and so does Milano. At the end of the second period, it made it actually 6-4, but unfortunately they get their 7th goal of the game. In the third period, we ended up losing that game 7-4. So we're really kind of sellers at that point. But then we flip the calendar into March and we go on this road swing, and we're playing some of the worst teams out west. And the first one is the Anaheim Ducks game. This is kind of an interesting and exciting game. The first period, Favari scores his 5th. It's a 1-0 for the Caps. Then they unfortunately tie it up a few minutes later. Wilson scores so early into the third period. There's no scoring in the second. I thought that was going to give us some momentum. That was his 6th of the season. He's been on fire lately. Anyway, made it 2-1. Unfortunately, about 4 minutes later, They tie it up 2-2. But Tom Wilson wants to get the W, and with a minute and 9 seconds, Tom Wilson scores his 7th of the season, and TJ Oshie's 12th assist, Alexio's 3rd assist, and it made it 3-2. And so Tom Wilson has had a hell of a week, and so it's been really impressive to watch. Anyway, so we got one last game to break down for the Capitals, and then I'm going to get all your guys' thoughts. And that's the San Jose game. And this was a blowout with a lot of these new players in the mix. So unfortunately, in the first period, we were all out of sorts. We allowed 20 shots on goal, which is not a good recipe in any game. We're down 0-2 at the end of the first period. But in the second period, we just really had a dominant period. Craig Smith gets his 5th of the season, gets the first goal. Nicolas Aube-Kubel, after getting the contract extension, which a lot of people had questions about and whether we should or shouldn't do, he pays what I would call immediate dividends, and scores his 3rd in the season. Matt Irwin scores his 1st goal of the season. Our new defensive player, another Carlson, but this one's spelled differently, Carl's son, with 2 S's, Gabriel, that is, his 1st assist, and Abe-Kubel's 7th assist, made it 3-2. And Craig Smith got on the board again, his 6th of the season, and Rasmus Sandin, his 17th assist of the season. Dylan Strome's 29th, made it 4-2. TJ Oshie scores in the 3rd, his 16th, another power play goal for TJ Oshie. He's been doing well from playing in that grouping. Alex Ovechkin's 25th assist and Sedin's 18th. And then they get a goal back, make it 5-3. Ovi scores the next 2. Wilson gets 1 assist. Gabriel Carlson gets another assist. Sandin gets his 3rd assist of the game. And Vincent, is it Oreo? How do you pronounce that, Gil?
Iorio.
Vincent Iorio gets his 1st point of his career, and it's an assist to Alex Ovechkin on his 35th goal of the season, which is, I'm sure, something that he will never forget. And Dylan Strome gets his 14th goal of the season at the end of that period to give us 8 goals. And Sonny Milano got an assist on that one. So just a rout. Hard to tell whether we're playing 2 of the worst teams in hockey or like they're starting to gel with some of these different players in the mix. It's going to be interesting to see. I just spit a lot at you guys. So I'm going to have you guys help give your take on it now. We're going to start with our special guest, Stewart. I'm going to have each of you guys pick 2 games, but tell me one game now that you want to talk a little bit more about, and then I'll get Anna and Gil's take on that game as well.
Well, Rob, thank you. If I may, I really don't want to focus on a game so much as the entire team as it is now, because with some games you have players who played who are now elsewhere. In other games, you have players who we didn't have before who are here now. So I think right now, this is a team in transition. As you mentioned at the top, we were sellers at the trade deadline, which, and I mentioned this to you earlier, Robbie, that to me, this was one of the heaviest trade deadlines league-wise. In fact, I think I was reading something, I think there was something like 40 or 45 deals made that week. And I think it would be unfair to just single out a game to talk about. I think it would be unfair to single out just one game to try to get a beat on where this team is now, because I think you have players who are trying to show they want to stay here, they want to impress. You mentioned Mr. Smith, you mentioned Rasmus Sandin, and you also mentioned the other younger guy who we have now. I think right now we need to just step back. Let's see where this team is now. Let's see if these guys can continue contributing, to see if they're going to be a part of this franchise for the near future, and to hopefully get it back to where they're somewhat more competitive to compete with the Boston Bruins and the New York Rangers of the world.
Yeah.
But let me just say one more thing. B-Mac I will say, I think he did a really, really, really wonderful job this time around, trying to stockpile all those draft picks to try to get this team younger. Because if you look back, you alluded to the 2 losses to Carolina. It seemed like they were skating figure eights around us. We were skating in mud. We were looking slow. We really didn't have energy. I think these young guys who are coming in and want to show what they can do are going to give that little spark that this team needs right now. It was getting older, and now this team needs to get younger. And I think what BMAC has done, not only in stockpiling all these draft picks, but also getting these young guys who can play now, is going to be key going forward. So I really want to spend these next couple of months just to see where these guys fit in, how these guys fit in, and to take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One thing I do want to mention, because I did love Anna and Gil's show this week, and I wanted to spotlight some parts of it. I really did like hearing about the road game, and getting to hear C4 talk about going to Buffalo, even though it was a loss. I thought that was a really interesting perspective on the hockey fans out there and how excited they are this year. And so I thought that part was really cool. So I hope people go back and listen to Gil and Anna's podcast, the Power Play Point podcast, about that. I also, I think I agree with you that there's a lot of players in different teams. I know that Gil kind of talked some trash about Mantha, and I agree with him. And it sucks because I wanted to wear my Mantha Ray shirt tonight and like try to argue against it, but I can't. Like, he's wasting space, and I think he should be bought out, and that's really sad. We haven't had a player where I feel like we need to buy them out for a very, very long time. So that goes to speak to your statement about Brian McClellan doing a good job, right? I mean, you're not going to get hit on everything, and anyone who's armchair GMs sitting on Facebook who say that they'll make better picks, or they have a better finger on the pulse than these guys who have been in the league for so many years, because he's been involved in so many parts of the Capitals organization even before he was in this role, right? So he's been a part of and developed so many players, and he understands that. And without him, we would never have won the Stanley Cup, right? So it's like, so no one in the crowd is going to have that kind of, I don't know, clout, insight, whatever you want to call it. I don't think Laviolette's necessarily lost the room. I think he's been dealt a pretty terrible hand this year. But it's funny because this season reminds me a lot of 2018. A lot of adversity, wanting into the coaches and GM's head, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, it all just kind of turned around, right? And I'm hoping this could be the kind of moment for them. And it could be. We're only a couple points out. I know that we have to jump a lot of teams. But Gil, do you think you still just go for it and you hope for the best this season, or how does this play out in your mind?
Well, I mean, with this much needed injection of youth and enthusiasm, like Stewart said, this is what we're seeing is in effect an audition for who wants to stay, who wants to be part of the long-term plans. This is a great opportunity for all of those younger players to show that they can contribute to the team short and long term. So when you consider that, then what you're going to get is very interesting hockey to watch. I don't know if this team is going to make the playoffs, but you know what? Since they're not quite out of it yet, it's still going to take quite a bit for them to be mathematically eliminated. So they're nowhere near that. We're only talking 18 games. So I say, why not go for it? And if you fall out of the playoffs, okay, that's fine. No big loss. We kind of resigned ourselves to figuring that was going to be our fate anyway, since we were sellers at the deadline. So no big loss here. But the most important thing is the right guys getting the playing time and developing, using this 18 to 20 games to solidify their position long-term on the team, especially the defense, because that's been a sore point for years with this team.
Yeah, it's tough because where we are, the worst is to be like that one spot outside. I mean, the Commanders, got to be basically in that spot this year. It's just tough. It's just the question of is does 5 or 6 positions in the draft matter? And it's hard to know with, who you're going to get at what spots, and it doesn't always pan out that way. It does, the number one spot's not always the best player, and so
well, if I can jump in, not to interrupt you, Rob, but if
Yeah.
I can jump in, make a quick couple of comments about that. One, this coming draft is supposed to be the deepest in years. And as far as the number one not necessarily being the best player, well, insiders say that Connor Bedard is going to be the de facto number one. I don't know if he's a generational talent, but he's pretty close to the talent level of, say, a Connor McDavid from what I've seen. I don't know if he'll be that good, but he has that potential. So he's going to be the number one regardless. But this draft class is extremely deep. And I think the Caps are going to get somebody special, assuming they hang on to that pick.
Yeah, but do you so there's no way we're getting to that number one spot in the lottery anyway. I mean, the likelihood is very, very small. So I guess the difference is, in that middle spots, does 4 or 5 positions matter, and that's, it'll be hard to know, and probably won't know for years if it did. So I kind of am the mindset you go for it too, and you kind of go as hard as you can and help develop these players, and who knows, maybe it will save Lavi's career here. Anna, what are some of your thoughts overall the last 2 weeks with all these players coming and going, and what is your pulse in the team?
Yeah, I will say I think my biggest shock, my big kind of single tear was losing Gus. I really thought that he had a ton of potential. We already know my Orlov feelings, so good luck to him in Boston. Would have liked to have seen Hathaway stay, but these things happen. But I will say, yeah, Stewart has a point. It's like we have different rosters kind of going from 2 weeks ago to recently. I think the Rangers was a huge win. I wish we would have continued to have the W's be a little bit more consistent. But for me, I will say if I had to pick a game out of the last 2 weeks, it definitely would have been the Sharks game. Mainly because I like what Gil and I talked about yesterday, but my big thing was when this team drops all of that, tension and just goes out and actually plays hockey and has fun. And we start to see smart passes and smart hockey overall, and this wasn't it wasn't a 60-minute game, obviously, because the first period was like, what the hell? But it gave the new guys a chance to come. It gave all of the fans an opportunity to see new skill, new speed, hopefully, the young legs and to see new chemistry. And I think that it's there. And I just hope that, so when we go, tonight against LA, just keep that right, keep the lines going, keep it fun, because I think that's when they play their best hockey. And I just feel like at that time it's, at this one it's like just go with it, so stop fucking around with the lines and just leave it as is and trust your lines, trust that chemistry, because whatever was said in the locker room in that after the first period of the Sharks game woke those players up. And that's what we need to see more of. And it's definitely there. And I think Iorio, I think he's going to be one to watch for. I mean, my God, he's only 20. And it's like, why not? And, and his passion for the game, but it's not even, he grew up idolizing Ovi. Yeah, well, so many of these other players did. It's his speed and skill and drive that got him where he is today. So let's put it on our lines. Why not?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. It's just hard to tell how this team will do against better teams. Let's talk a little bit about this Kings game that's tonight. I'll sort of give people the rundown of how the Kings have been doing, and I'll get all you guys' takes on
no, without
one.
Quick.
Yeah, I know.
That's huge.
That trade is so interesting. We can start there. Like, they try to offload him, which in kind of a dirty move in my mind, because I don't think he's staying in the league for that many more seasons. They could have just kept him and have him retire a King, because now they're gonna want him back and so that way you could say, oh, he always was one, right? And so it's just for a little bit of capital. And I just don't know. In my mind, in my mind, you don't do somebody dirty that way. It's been the face of your franchise for that long. Like, can you imagine trading Ovi for capital, like at the very end of his career for a couple of games? Like, that's crazy.
And at the very least, they could have traded him to a contender, although he ended up in Vegas. So who knows what's going to happen there? But it just seems to me someone like that. I think back to when the Caps were making one of their fire sales, and they traded Dale Hunter to the Colorado Avalanche for a chance to win a cup there. It didn't work out, but at least out of respect for him and what he's meant to the organization, they gave him a chance to win a ring elsewhere. And I was a little surprised to see that LA sent him to, I think it was the Wild.
Columbus.
Right? Columbus. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It just seemed strange that they would send him there, knowing
that. Well, and he was shocked too, and that's always like, oh, where's your loyalty?
And he said he wasn't going to report, which that's crazy.
That sucks.
Yeah, and it sucks for those couple of fans that bought quick jerseys and made them up with all the information, and then it comes out that he doesn't even want to play for your team, so now you're stuck with a 250 piece of one-day memorabilia. I don't know.
That's why I never buy the jersey of current players, because so often they'll either tear their ACLs, they'll get released, or something like that. So
I don't buy any jerseys. I don't buy any jerseys at all. I have my fan favorites, but no, I don't for that exact reason.
I was very nervous this trade deadline because there was a lot of rumors, and I was like, oh, hell no. So I got this. I was like, I would have been,
Well, Robbie, you know about the big one that almost happened involving Wilson.
The rumor that was about him to the Pittsburgh?
No, the one of him going to Minnesota for Ryan Reeves.
Shut up.
In fact, Ryan Reeves is going to take number 43. So that would have been something.
Twisting that knife.
Ryan Reeves. Anna's going to smack me.
God, I hate that guy.
He's going to smack me.
Yeah, her hand's going to come through the Zoom. All right, let's go take a look at the Kings. So the Kings have beaten the Blues 4-2, beaten the Canadiens 3-2, beat the Winnipeg Jets 6-5, lost to the Rangers 5-2, and beat the Islanders 3-2. And they played the Rangers right around the same time period as us. So that's the only real comparable game, in the last 5. But we've talked about it already. We have a very different team. And the Rangers are an interesting anomaly, right? Because they on paper look like one of the best teams in years, but I don't know if that's all going to work out for them in the end. But anyway, so let's talk about the Kings. They've won a bunch coming into this, including the last 3. All of these games, the last 2 were at home, so part of this homestand here that they're playing. The game against the Blues happened on Saturday, so they've had a little bit of rest coming into this one. It's obviously a new look Kings. Oh, the final thought is, on that trade before we finish that was, I can't believe they would never have traded him to Vegas, like their rival team, but now he gets to play on their rival, and he's going to be mad whenever he plays them, So I think that's going to be interesting. And it's tough because I want him, and I want Orlov, and I want some of these other players to do well. So it's tough because they're going to teams that I naturally hate, in Vegas and Buffalo and Boston. But it's tough because I still want success for them. I've always liked Quick. He's one of the greatest American goalies of all time. He's still just a couple of wins away, I want to say, from second all time. Is that right, Gil, on the all-time American wins list?
Or is wins by an American goalie. If I remember right, Mike Richter has that record.
Let's see.
I'm researching that as quick as I can.
I got you.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Anna, for hanging the
So
buck.
they pay me
Okay.
the big bucks.
Okay. So let's
Keep Johnny on
see.
the
Games
spot.
played. No, right. Okay. So it's Ryan Miller that
Yeah.
has the record with 391 wins,
Right.
and Jonathan Quick actually needs 20 to tie.
Right.
He's actually third on the list of American goalies, and John Van Beesbrook is in between them. But yeah, Jonathan Quick would actually need to win 20 more games. So unfortunately, that's not going to be possible because they've already played well, he's with Vegas now. Vegas has already played 63 games. So even if he got into all the rest of their 19 games,
it's that he's trying to get for second, I think was the thing. And he only needs to
okay,
get 3 more wins for second,
right?
is what he could get this year. And if he stayed for another year, then maybe he could go for Ryan Miller's. So
Yeah,
I
I don't think he's playing beyond this year. All the scuttlebutt I'm hearing is that he's retiring after this year.
Right. So maybe he can try to get 3 more wins though, and try to, who knows? I mean, these are regular season wins though, so the
Yeah.
playoffs obviously don't help him in
Right.
that. But anyway, so what are your thoughts going back to the Kings now? I'll start off with you, Gil. What are your thoughts on playing them?
I'm going to be bold here. I'm not the least bit impressed with them at all. They've lost to a lot of weaker teams in the Western Conference. I'm not and in the Eastern Conference, a lot of teams they should have beaten, they can't seem to beat. I'm not impressed by anybody in the Western Conference for that matter, because I don't think I look up and down the standings. I don't see anybody that's capable of winning the cup, not even Colorado. I doubt they're going to repeat. They've had so many injury problems this year. They've just now scraped back into a division spot that might get hot during the playoffs, but I can't see anybody out of the West winning, much. So Los Angeles is kind of a middle of the road team. I mean, on paper they look impressive. Anze Kopitar is Anze Kopitar. He's probably one of the greatest two-way players to ever play the game. But Kevin Fiala, he's pretty good. Leads the team in a few offensive categories. Goaltending is solid, but this team doesn't do one thing very, very well. But they also don't do anything really badly either. So, I mean, they're beatable. Is what how I would evaluate them. And I think the Caps can surprise them if they take the attack to them and use their newfound speed against them. I think they've got a good chance of winning this game. If
Mm-hmm.
in the last game, the last 40 minutes, there's a very good chance they can come away with 2 points.
All right.
If they play like they did against the Sharks, they've got a very
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Any additional comments you wanted to add to that?
No, I just feel like I think with the Capitals now, like we can't even look at past couple of games, because all of a sudden here we are with this fantastic win against the Rangers and a really shitty loss against the Ducks. It's like we're just sort of all over the place. So why not just ride the wave now with the Sharks win and in that roster and those lines, and let's hope we just continue it going forward. And I do think there's potential to beat the Kings. Absolutely.
I think it kind of.
Yeah, if you run the table in March, anything's possible, right? So,
yeah.
Stewart, what are some of your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I just think at this point, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, really, this team is just trying to find its footing. It's trying to find itself.
Yeah.
Who is going to stay here? Who is going to not be here? This really is an audition for the future. Now, if we get in, somehow sneak into the playoffs during that audition, wonderful. But at this point, I just want to see what we have. Who can play where, and who can show up night in, night out. Okay, you gave me, for example, 2 goals and assists the other night. Can you do the same tonight? If not, can you do something else defensively? Can you take on their top line? Really, I think this is just a team that's trying to
consistent.
Exactly.
Consistent and chemistry. Those are the 2 big C's I want to see. Come on now.
Right. I'm kind of just looking at it as glorified preseason games. Now, like I said, if we get into the playoffs, wonderful. But right now, I want to see what this team has and putting all that together. Really, yep. I think that should be the top priority. Obviously, you want to win. Obviously, you want to get into the playoffs. But if that doesn't happen, let's see what we have. And then let's build on that next year.
Yeah. It's good. These next couple of games are going to be really interesting towards that end, just because if you look at where the standings are, just so people have some general sense on how it looks. Right now, Washington's in the 6th spot with 68 points, but they find themselves tied with Florida, who has 68 points, Ottawa 68 points, and Buffalo 68 points. And then the team that sits in the second wild card spot is the dreaded Pittsburgh Penguins at 71, only 3 points ahead of us, right? So it's not that crazy. Usually when you jump teams, there's more points spreading them out, right? It's not usually like a win could jump all of them, right? So
right.
I just think that's something to think about. And the Islanders sit at 72 points, so they're only basically a half of a win above where the Pittsburgh is. So there's basically 6 teams fighting for 2 spots here. So it's just something to talk about, because the Islanders are one of the teams that were fighting for position. Also, New Jersey, they're at 88, have had a good season, but they're the other team we're playing this week. So it's kind of a really cool benchmark, if you will, for the Capitals here. So their upcoming games, again, the first one is a very short homestand. It's a 1-game homestand, Thursday, March 9th. At New Jersey. New Jersey coming to town at 7, and then we turn around 2 days later, and it's Saturday game. It's at the Islanders, 7:30 game, and then the following Tuesday they'll play the Rangers. So I wonder if they'll even come back. They'll probably just stay up in New York, is my assumption for that. But between the Jersey game, again, that's at home at 7, and the Islanders game on the road 7:30. On the 9th and 11th, I'm going to let each one of you guys pick one game you want to talk about. I'm going to start off with our special guest, Stewart. Is there a certain game that you're looking to of the two, or something interesting in one of those games?
Well, I'm kind of interested in the Buffalo game, since they're currently tied with Buffalo right now. In fact, they have a couple of games with Buffalo coming, if I'm not mistaken.
Islanders.
I said Buffalo. Why do I have Buffalo on my mind? Yeah, no, I want to see them against the Islanders. I mean, Again, we're trying to find ourselves. We're trying to fit the pieces together. Let's see what these pieces can do against one of the upper teams in the league right now. Let's see what they got against the Islanders. I want to see what these boys can do.
Yeah, I think that is will be a really interesting. These are both really interesting because of where they are currently standings. But Gil, which one of the two do you want to talk about?
I would love to see what they do when they finally come home. The team that they have now finally come home against the Devils. Been hearing for a while how good this team is. And I guess some of us were kind of hoping, me included, that maybe they'd fizzle out. They haven't, to their credit. So they're a benchmark team, to be sure. So I want to see how this new unit fares against a team that has managed to put it together. Of course, the goaltending they've got the near generational player in Jack Hughes. They've got a solid defense. But I think once a lot of these guys that have just joined the team, once they get that taste of what Capital One Arena can sound like, I want to see how those guys can react to that, can feed off of that. I'd love to see how they acclimate to that, because it used to be that the Caps were a feared team to play in that building. Not so much anymore. And I think with a lot of these guys that have had the legs to play a 60-minute game, might be a new chapter in that. Might be something that turns around for them. Might be at least more interesting to watch. For the fans in Cap One. So that's the game I'm keying on for this week.
Yeah, and Anna, between those two games, which one are you keying in on?
I honestly don't really have an opinion either way, because I just feel like I want to see the same line for tonight for the Kings, and I want to see them bring it home. against the Devils and play. I just want to see that consistency. And yeah, I think the new players coming out to the Caps fans will be fantastic for them. But I just want to see a consistent line, and I want to see 60 minutes of hockey with the team that we know and love, and just get out there and play. My God, like, let's just do it already.
Yeah, well, it'll be exciting. This Kings game is coming up just shortly. If you're watching live on Twitch, you can see we've got a live score bug above my head that'll have the score as it starts in just about 30 minutes. So a fun way to kind of get us ready for that. I know it's a late game. I'm not sure how late I will stay up for it, but obviously how they do in each period will justify whether or not I stay up another period for them. I'm sure that many on this call are in the similar boat. But this has been super fun. Stewart, you are welcome anytime to join us for Caps Talk. I really enjoyed this wonderfully. I'm going to let our other two Power Play Point podcast guests go. I'm going to do our kind of farewell with them, but I'm going to keep you on the line, and we're going to talk a little bit of defenders in just a second. But Gil, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts of things that people should be looking towards? I know that you're trying to highlight women in hockey, but let people know about this week's podcast and the upcoming ones as well.
Yes. So another little thing I'd like to throw out there for this episode is we talk a little bit about the PWHPA, it's Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. We're actually in town. They were at the MCI for the Secret Dream Gap Tour. All 4 teams played kind of a mini tournament to build up the standings. They're coming towards their championships. So we talk about that a little bit, and hopefully some of you out there caught that. And again, Women's History Month, we're looking for female Caps fans who want to get on, and the spotlight's on you. You want to talk about the team, talk about your experience in hockey. I know a lot of you out there play the game. Love to hear about that. So yeah, that's who we're looking for these next few weeks in March. I'm going to drop a bit of a bomb here. This coming episode is going to be something special. I'm not going to say anything more than that. And Anna knows what I'm talking about. But this coming episode is going to be a bit more special than usual.
I'm jumping out of my own birthday cake.
I'm tuning in. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't keep it in.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be where you were buying the football team.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
exactly.
If only.
Right. But yes, Gil, I've loved having you on. It was great celebrating 300 a couple of weeks ago with you. And again, if people right click on the podcast partners button on our website, opening that in a new tab, it'll list out all of our partner podcasts, and Power Play Point Podcast is right there. Or you can just search Power Play Point Podcast on any of the podcast platforms, and you can catch both of them. So thank you, Gil. I'm going to keep Anna on for a second, but I really appreciate Gil as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Robbie. Pleasure being on again.
All right, and Anna,
Talk to you soon, Gil.
Hi, guys.
We didn't get to enjoy 300 together a couple weeks ago. I was a little bummed about that, but I'm so thankful that you've been a part of this show for so many seasons now, and been such a big influence. And I'm happy that you've been able to give the female perspective, on hockey and a lot of sports, about 49ers and other things as well. And maybe I'll even get you into some XFL football if you listen to the next segment, because the Defenders are pretty awesome. I definitely think that you like football, and I think you would really enjoy the Defenders, since there are no San Francisco teams to rival us in this sport, at least. But Anna, you've been such a great member of this team, and I didn't get to formally congratulate you in 300, although we did mention you, obviously. But thank you so much for being such a big part of this the last couple of seasons, and I'm so looking forward to the next couple of weeks breaking down how the Caps do on this season, because it's going to be such an interesting transitional time for them, and I really appreciate your insight for all of that, and I just wanted you to know that before I let you go tonight.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled and speechless, which is rare for me, but I appreciate the opportunity. I know I'm always like, oh, I gotta go to bed, but I do look forward to these shows, and you guys do a fantastic job, and I'm honored to, God, 300 episodes. That's really incredible. So good for you guys. Cheers to you. And yeah, let's hope this team just has some fun and just kicks ass the next couple of games.
Yeah, I do too. It'll be a fun week to break down. Hopefully it'll be a positive week, and it will be like the spurring on the momentum like we talked about in 2018 when we covered that run. And hopefully we can bring some of this Stewart juju with us, since last time he was on was that year, right? So maybe that's the key to bring back the magic. So but Anna, I hope that you have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you next week. Next week we're gonna be doing a March Madness special where we're breaking down March Madness as well. So we'll start with some Caps. I may even see if C4 wants to join us for some Caps talk as well. I'll see what her availability is. That would be kind of a fun guest for Women's History Month as well. And someday I'd love to get Haley back on. She was such an incredible guest.
That was such a fun episode
on the show, and the fact that she did even 2 shows with us is amazing to have an Olympian on. And I'd love to bring her back on someday. I know she's still doing some big stuff with the team, and she's an ambassador of the team and helps with women's sports and hockey as well. And so she's fantastic. So shout out to her as well. But Anna, thank you so much, and we'll definitely have you on for the March Madness special next week.
Of course. And let's see, Stewart, have a fantastic birthday. I'm sure I'll find a fun meme or something to send you.
Okay. Look forward.
Happy early birthday
have
to
a
you
good
as
show,
well.
guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Anna.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So yeah, happy early birthday to Anna, and we're gonna bring in DC's People's Champ in here. Champ, how are you doing tonight?
Konbanwa, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Hello, everybody. Glad to be
Champ.
Glad to be talking about. How you doing, Stuart? Glad to be talking about a very successful start to the season for the DC Defenders and what looks like a really fun team to watch.
Yes, Champ, you're a little bit low, coming in a little bit lower than us. I don't know if you can boost your mic signal a little bit.
Let me see. Hang on just a second.
So while he's trying to figure that out, I'm going to use this opportunity.
How about now?
To change my so much better. There we go.
Champ.
Yeah. All right, and now it gave me time to change the graphics, and so Pro Streamer.